Okay, so today we are going to be looking at using Divi, which is a builder. We're going to be using it to create a contact form. So I've just built a really good one for a client of ours, which is a local church based in Camberley. So the contact form that we've got here, as you can see, is we're using a contact form on the left here, but we've included a GDPR compliance check and also a full width Google map. So the first thing that we want to do to start that off is I'm going to close that down because we're finished with that. You want to navigate to the URL here, so cloud.google.com/maps-platform. First thing that we want to do is we want to create an API or a project with an API associated to it, because we're going to be using that API to make calls to the Maps platform. Unfortunately, it always used to be free. Google introduced charges for this in July. However, you get $300 of credit per month, and we've got about 4 or 5 sites using the same payment plan, if you like, and we've never hit that limit. Yeah, obviously if you've got a really busy site, then you may well run into charges, but for a local site such as I don't know, a local company, if it's just on the contact page and you're only going to be making a call every time that contact page is opened. So the first thing that we want to do is we've signed in with our credentials, and the next thing we want to do is we want to go to our console, as you can see here. You only see that console if you've logged into the actual Maps platform. So we're going to go to console. And we're going to have a look at our projects that we've got. So I've got a couple of projects here. I've got 2 projects. What I'm going to do is to create a new project. So I'm going to call this one, because that's what we're working on. Sorry, yeah, we don't need one of those. Just going to create it. Create the project. And then from our list, we're going to actually go in and select it. Okay, there we go. So from the top menu, it's a bit fiddly. This is. It doesn't seem to work particularly well, but which is surprising for Google, but it probably works fine in Chrome. So we've selected the project that we've created, and we now want to create our API credentials. So I'm going to be using an API key. Once you've created your API key, you want to definitely restrict it, and I'll show you how to do that. First of all, we're going to copy the API key, clicking on the copy button there, and now we're going to restrict the key. So the key restrictions are based here. So what I tend to use, if you've got a fixed IP address, that's fine, you can use IP addresses. I don't, so I'm going to be using HTTP referrers, and I'm going to be using the URL here. So I'm going to copy the URL. That's going to go into my restrictions. Like that. And then the API restrictions as well. So service usage API, don't seem to have it. So okay, So once you've created your key, we need to assign them to the API. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here. So from our credentials, we've created the API that you can see here. Don't worry, I'm going to remove this afterwards. It's just I'm using it for the demo. And I'm going to go back to the library, and I'm going to add, once we're in here, Maps API. We're going to enable it. It's got to be the JavaScript one if you're going to be using it in Divi. Okay, that's fine. And then we're going to go back to the APIs again, and we're going to select from the library. We want the geo coding, not the geolocation, but the geocoding, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be entering like an address or a postcode into Divi, and that's then going to look up to find the map. So we're going to select that, and we're going to enable that for our project as well. Okay, so that bit's done. Now we're going to go back to our API credentials, and I'm going to add the restrictions that I was talking about earlier. So we're going to edit the API key. We're going to add the referrer, so that is like that. And I'm also going to add the API restrictions here because it should have added them. So we want to... Okay, so from the API restrictions, you want to select your geocoding API and your Maps JavaScript API, and you also want to that is pretty much all you need, but I always add in the Maps Embed API, so it'll allow it to be embedded anywhere else. Once you've got that in there, you want to click on Save. That will take up to around about 5 minutes to become active, and then you can go back to your web page and add the details, which I'm going to talk through now. We can log on and we can create our contact page. We want to use a text module, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll call this one, we'll just put a h1 tag in it. That's what we need for now. Save and exit that. Next thing is we want to add another row. In this row we want to have a split column, so we're going to use half and half, and in the left hand column we're going to have our contact form. So we'll accept the details here. I'm not going to complete any of these because I don't need to do that. In the right hand column we're going to add another text module, and this is going to be something like sending post to us. Postal address, we'll call that. Let's pop that in the middle. This one can be company. We'll use the text on this one. Don't know if that's a valid postcode, but that doesn't matter. And finish that off like that. Telephone number, done. Okay, so the next one is we want to add a standard section, 1 column wide. Now the reason for that is we can't, it's not going to work in this one because we actually want to extend it all the way across. So what we want to do is we want to insert the map module, and this is now asking for our API key, so we can click on that, we can scroll down and we can add our API key in here, and then we're going to save the changes like that, and then we can go back into the map module. We can now add our API. The API key should be there, so right. So what we need to do is we're going to close that, we'll save that draft. Bit annoying, but you have to refresh the page, so that should have picked it up now. We go back in here. There, that's picked up the API key. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add an address. So let's go to Google Maps. Not sure what's going on there. There we go. Go to Google Maps. And we'll have, I don't know, we'll pick, let's pick Guildford. Guildford's over there, so let's have Guildford School of Acting. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this location here, which is a plus code. So I'm going to take the plus code, I go back to my page, and I'm going to paste it in there, and I'm going to click on Find. Now this will probably take a little bit of time to come up with anything. The reason for that is it takes a good 5-10 minutes for everything to get readied on the Google Cloud platform. So I'm going to leave that like that. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to save the draft again once that's become active, and then we're going to use the Visual Builder. So we click on Visual Builder, that's the message you get when you first use it. So I've not used it on this site before. Okay, so this is our Google Maps placeholder. So what you want to do is where it says row settings, we're going to click on the row settings, and we're going to go to design, we're going to go to sizing, we're going to click on make this row full width, we're going to say yes, and then we want to set the gutter width to 1, and that will take it all the way across the screen. It's not visible yet still, but this will do it. Save those changes like that, and then we want to go to the page icon, which is at the bottom here. We want to click on that, and then we want to say save draft. Okay, and then I'm going to exit the Visual Builder. And as you can see here, you've got the framework for the map in the middle. So let's go back and edit our page. And we can have a look to see if it's picked it up. Okay, so it hasn't at the moment, still not there. So let's try and take the address. So we'll copy the address and we'll try that instead. Click on Find. So we're going to go back and we're going to use this, which is our plus location. Click on Find. Once the API is active, your map will then appear, and then you can click on Save and Exit, and we can save our draft. We're going to go back to our page to make sure that it's all working and visible. Refresh that page. There we go. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is I want to add the footer. So I'm going to have the footer right up against the base of the map. Now, as you know, what you'll see here is I'm scrolling my mouse at the moment, and that's zooming in and out. We can disable that as well, because when you're trying to scroll through your page, if you've got a long footer, it actually becomes quite annoying when you scroll up and you end up zooming in and out. So let's go back, and we're going to go back to use our Visual Builder. Now the reason for this is it's much easier to drag the base rather than messing around with the borders. So we're going to scroll to the bottom, and we're going to select the last object area. We're not going to click on the plus because that's going to add another section, but we're going to go to the right of it, and we're going to drag that all the way back up to as high as it will go. So that's now set to 0. And again, we're going to click on the page options, and we're going to save our draft. And then we're going to exit the Visual Builder. And then we're going to edit the page. And this is the point that we're now going to go back in, and we're going to set the borders. So we're going to go into our row settings. And we're not. We're going to go into our section settings. We're going to go to Design. I'm going to put those back to where they were. We're going to go into our section settings now, into the row settings, into Design. They're all set to 0. Top is set to 27. Going to set our bottom to 0 pixels on our map module. There we go. So that is nicely sitting on the bottom now. So so what we did there was we've gone into each of the sections, our settings for the section module, into design. This is where we use the visual builder, where we drag that up. So the top has got a custom padding of 54 and all the rest is zeros. Then we go into our row settings and we set our row settings to in design. Again, we give that a bottom of 0 pixels, and then we go into our map object and again go to design and set that to 0 pixels on the bottom. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to stop the scrolling. So again, we go back into our map settings and we can scroll to design, and it's this option here, mouse wheel zoom. So we're going to set that to off. Save that, save the draft. Refresh our page. And if you're using the scroll now, it just scrolls the page up and down. So you can still zoom in and out with the plus and the minus. That's fine. So the next thing that we want to do is we actually want to give it a custom pin. So we're going to go back to our map again. And the reason for putting a custom pin is it's an easy way for your visitors to know where you are, and you can put a nice little pop-up with all your contact details on. So in this instance, we're going to add a new pin, and we're going to give this a title. I can't remember what it's called. Guildford School of Acting. So we're going to call that Guildford School of Acting. And in here, we're going to put. Let's go back to our contact page, and I'm going to take the postal address. Like that. And I'm also going to add the telephone number, which was on our page here. I'm going to move that across so it's centralized in a minute. We'll copy that. Add that in, and then we're going to we need to tell it to show that with the details default, and we're going to copy the plus code again, and we're going to add that into here. We're going to find it, and that's our pin located. Pin map address. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to add that there. Save and exit that. We're going to save our draft again. We're going to go back to our page and refresh our page. And you'll see that that gives us a nice little pop-up with all of your information on there. Next thing I'm going to do is just to center that phone number there, which was here. So I'm going to put that in the center, and I'm actually going to name my admin label postal address. Save our draft. Now what we can do also here is we can add some horizontal rules. So in this case it's a divider, and the design of it, I'm going to pick the standard color that it's giving me there. I'm going to give it a weight of 2. I want it to be 100%. That can go into, actually I'm going to do that as a separate module up here. So I'm going to drag that up into there, and I'm going to add a module, same again. Actually, I can just duplicate it. It should all be the same. Solid 2, yep, save and exit. And I'm going to drag that under the text at the top. Save our draft. Have a look at the page. Okay, so that is a big gap there. So let's have a look at why that is. That is probably going to be because of the section here. So let's no, nothing to do with that. The row there. That's why. Not sure how that got 54 there. Go back to design. Refresh our page, look at the distance there. That's brought that up nicely. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this bottom section is using 0 pixels, and here so all I'm doing there is closing the gap between the bottom of the horizontal rule and the top of the map. Okay, there we go. So that's a little bit better. It's probably a bit too much, but we can play around with that. Now the next thing that I said that we were going to do is we're going to mess around with the contact form here. So what I want to do is put a phone number in and a GDPR message. So to do that, we're going to go back to our contact form. We're going to add a new field, and this field is going to be called phone, and phone. Now the input field is just that, it's an input field. I want it to be required, but I want it to be numbers only. So with numbers it will let you add a space in, so if you're entering an area code and a number you can have a space in it, so that stops any rubbish creeping in. We're going to say save to that, and we're going to left click and drag that above email. So now if we have a look by using the preview button here, we're going to have a wonky form. So I want my email address to be 100% wide, so I'm going to go back into email. I'm going to go to design. I'm going to say make full width, like that. The next thing that I want to do is, well, I want to round the edges of my input boxes. So I'm going to go to design on the actual contact form module settings, and I'm going to scroll down until I find input rounded corners, and I'm going to select 5 for all of those, and that will default for everything. I'm going to save and exit that. Oh no, I'm going to go back into it because I haven't added the GDPR message. So I'm going to add a new field, and I'm going to call this one GDPR, like that. And this one is going to be a checkbox, and I'm going to have it ticked to start with by default, and I'm going to say I consent to It's a required field, so it won't let you submit it unless that is enabled. And the design of it's going to drop it underneath, but I want this one again to be full width. We're going to say save and exit, and then publish the draft. Now if we go back to our contact form again and refresh the page, you'll see that that is now got rounded corners. It's got our name, our phone number, our email address, our message, and our GDPR consent. Now if I untick that, fill all the details in and submit it, it's going to not allow us to do that because I've told it that that needs to be selected before the form can be submitted. So once you're happy with your form, we then publish and make sure that you add it to your menu. Divi will actually add it automatically unless you're using a custom menu, which I'm not, so therefore it's given us the contact us details there. So that's it. If you found the video useful, it'd be great if you could like it, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for additional tips and tricks specifically around Divi. It's a really powerful builder, and we'll be putting some more videos up with specific scenarios again in the future. Thanks for watching.